The morning sun cast long shadows across the cobblestone streets of London as tourists began gathering near Buckingham Palace. Among them was 8-year-old Emma Thompson, clutching her mother's hand tightly as they approached the famous gates. Her bright blue eyes sparkled with excitement as she spotted the magnificent black horse standing proudly beside a royal guard in his traditional red uniform. Emma had been dreaming of this moment for months. Her family had saved money for this special trip from their small town in Yorkshire, and seeing the royal guards was at the top of her wish list. She wore her favorite purple dress with tiny flowers printed on it, and her blonde hair was tied back with a matching ribbon that her grandmother had given her just for this occasion. The royal guard sitting atop the horse was named James Mitchell, though the tourists didn't know his name. He had been serving with the household cavalry for 5 years, and his horse, Thunder, had been his faithful companion for the past 3 years. Thunder was a 17-hand-high black gelding with intelligent dark eyes and a calm temperament that made him perfect for ceremonial duties. Despite his imposing size, Thunder had always shown a gentle nature around children. As the crowd of tourists grew larger, Emma's mother, Sarah, struggled to keep track of her daughter while also trying to take photographs. The area was bustling with people from all over the world, speaking different languages and jostling for the best view of the guards. Street vendors were calling out selling souvenirs and postcards, while tour guides led groups of excited visitors through the historic area. Emma found herself slowly moving closer to Thunder, mesmerized by the horse's beauty and the guard's perfect stillness. She had always loved horses, spending hours at the local stable back home, but she had never seen such a magnificent animal up close. Thunder's coat gleamed in the sunlight, and his muscles rippled beneath his skin as he occasionally shifted his weight. Meanwhile, lurking in the shadows of the growing crowd was a man named Marcus Webb. He was a thin, nervous-looking individual in his late 30s, wearing a worn brown jacket and dark jeans. Marcus had been watching the tourists for the past hour, his eyes constantly scanning for opportunities. He had a history of petty crimes and had recently become involved with a more dangerous group of people who were involved in human trafficking. Marcus had noticed Emma almost immediately. She was clearly from a well-off family, judging by her clean clothes and the expensive camera her mother was carrying. More importantly, she seemed to be wandering slightly away from her parents as she became fascinated by the horses and guards. This was exactly the kind of opportunity Marcus had been instructed to look for. The criminal had positioned himself near a black taxi that was parked just around the corner from the main tourist area. The taxi driver was part of his network, and they had used this method before to quickly transport victims away from busy public areas before anyone realized what had happened. The plan was simple but effective. Grab a child when their parents were distracted, quickly get them into the taxi, and disappear into London's busy traffic before anyone could react. As Emma continued to inch closer to Thunder, her mother became momentarily distracted by a street performer who was juggling colorful balls nearby. Other tourists were taking photos and blocking Sarah's view of her daughter. It was in this moment of confusion that Marcus saw his chance. Guard James Mitchell, despite appearing motionless to the casual observer, was actually very aware of everything happening around him. Years of training had taught him to notice unusual behavior and potential threats, even while maintaining his ceremonial posture. He had already noticed Marcus lurking in the crowd, and something about the man's behavior had raised red flags in his mind. Thunder, too, seemed to sense something was wrong. Horses have an incredible ability to read human emotions and intentions, and Thunder had begun to show subtle signs of agitation. His ears were moving more frequently, and he was paying particular attention to the area where Marcus was standing. Emma was now standing just a few feet away from Thunder, looking up at the magnificent horse with wonder in her eyes. She reached into her small purse and pulled out an apple that her mother had packed for their day of sightseeing. Without thinking about whether it was appropriate, she held the apple up toward Thunder, wanting to offer him a treat. "Hello, beautiful horse," she whispered softly, not wanting to disturb the guard but hoping Thunder might hear her gentle voice. Thunder looked down at the small girl with his kind eyes, and for just a moment the formal ceremony seemed to fade away as a connection formed between the child and the animal. It was at this exact moment that Marcus made his move. The criminal stepped forward quickly, his heart racing as he approached Emma from behind. He had done this before, and he knew that speed and surprise were essential. In his mind, he was already calculating how many steps it would take to reach the taxi, how long it would take for anyone to realize what was happening, and what excuse he would give if anyone tried to stop him. But Marcus had made a critical error in his planning. He had focused so intently on the little girl and her distracted mother that he had completely underestimated the awareness and protective instincts of both the royal guard and his horse. As Marcus reached out toward Emma, preparing to grab her and pull her toward the waiting taxi, Thunder's entire demeanor changed in an instant. The gentle giant that had been calmly observing the tourists suddenly became a fierce protector, his instincts telling him that the child he had just connected with was in immediate danger. The story was about to take a dramatic turn that would be remembered by everyone present for the rest of their lives, and would ultimately become a testament to the incredible bond between humans and horses, and the dedication of those who serve to protect others. The moment Marcus Webb's hand reached toward Emma's shoulder, Thunder erupted into action with a speed and intelligence that shocked everyone present. The massive horse reared up on his hind legs, his front hooves pawing the air as he positioned himself directly between the criminal and the little girl. His powerful neigh echoed through the courtyard, a sound so loud and commanding that it immediately drew the attention of every person in the area. Guard James. Mitchell felt Thunder's sudden movement beneath him and instantly knew something serious was happening. Without breaking his ceremonial posture completely, he quickly assessed the situation and saw Marcus attempting to grab Emma. Years of military training kicked in as James subtly shifted his weight and gave Thunder silent signals that the horse understood perfectly. Emma jumped back in surprise at Thunder's sudden movement, but instead of being frightened, she instinctively stepped closer to the horse, somehow understanding that he was trying to protect her. The apple she had been holding fell to the ground and rolled across the cobblestones as she looked up at Thunder with grateful eyes. Marcus had not expected any resistance, certainly not from a ceremonial horse. He stumbled backward as Thunder's massive form blocked his path to Emma, and for a moment he froze, unsure of what to do next. His criminal mind quickly began calculating new options, but he was rattled by the unexpected turn of events. "What's happening over there?" called out a tourist from Germany, pointing at the commotion. Within seconds, dozens of people were turning their attention toward the scene, their cameras and phones now focused on Thunder and the unfolding drama rather than taking casual tourist photos. Sarah Thompson heard Thunder's neigh and immediately began scanning the crowd for her daughter. When she spotted Emma standing near the agitated horse, maternal instinct sent her pushing through the crowd of tourists, her heart pounding with fear that something terrible was happening to her child. Emma, come here right now," Sarah called out, but her voice was lost in the growing noise of the crowd and Thunder's continued warnings. Thunder was far from finished with his intervention. The intelligent horse had recognized Marcus as a threat, and he was not about to let the man get anywhere near Emma. As Marcus tried to circle around to approach the girl from a different angle, Thunder pivoted with surprising grace for such a large animal, always keeping himself between the criminal and the child. Other royal guards stationed nearby began to take notice of the situation. While they were required to maintain their posts, they were also trained to communicate with each other through subtle signals. Guard William Hayes, positioned about 30 feet away, caught James Mitchell's eye and received a barely perceptible nod that confirmed something serious was happening. Marcus was becoming desperate now. The longer he stayed in the area, the more attention he was drawing to himself, and he knew that his associates in the taxi were probably getting nervous about the delay. He decided to make one more aggressive attempt to grab Emma, this time trying to use the confusion and crowd to his advantage. "Come here, little girl," Marcus said, trying to make his voice sound friendly and authoritative. "Your mother sent me to get you. She's waiting for you right over there." He pointed vaguely toward the area where the taxi was parked, hoping that Emma might be confused enough to follow him. But Emma was a smart child, and her parents had taught her well about stranger danger. She looked at Marcus with suspicion and stepped even closer to Thunder, placing her small hand on the horse's leg. "I don't know you," she said clearly. "My mummy always says I should never go with strangers." Thunder seemed to understand Emma's words and responded by moving even closer to her, creating an almost complete barrier between the child and Marcus. The horse's ears were pinned back against his head, and his eyes were fixed intently on the criminal, watching his every movement. James Mitchell knew he needed to act more decisively. While he couldn't abandon his post entirely, the safety of a child was his absolute priority. He began making subtle hand signals to other guards and security personnel in the area, indicating that there was a potential threat that needed immediate attention. A plainclothes security officer named Detective Inspector Robert Chen, who had been patrolling the tourist area, noticed the commotion and began moving closer to investigate. Chen was an experienced officer who had worked in the area for over 10 years, and he immediately recognized the signs of a potentially dangerous situation. Marcus was running out of time and options. The crowd was growing larger. More guards were taking notice, and the horse was making it impossible for him to get near the girl. He knew that if he didn't act soon, he would have to abandon the attempt entirely and risk the anger of his criminal associates. In his desperation, Marcus made a critical mistake. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small knife, thinking that the threat of a weapon might force people to back away and give him the opening he needed to grab Emma and run to the taxi. But Thunder saw the glint of metal in Marcus's hand, and the horse's protective instincts went into overdrive. With a sound that was part neigh and part roar, Thunder reared up again, this time coming down with his front hooves dangerously close to Marcus. The message was clear. This horse would do whatever it took to protect the little girl. The crowd gasped and began backing away as they realized that something much more serious than a tourist photo opportunity was happening. Several people began pulling out their phones to call for help, while others started recording the dramatic scene unfolding before them. Emma, still standing close to Thunder, looked up at James Mitchell with wide eyes. "The horse is protecting me, isn't he?" she asked in her small, clear voice that somehow carried over the noise of the crowd. James Mitchell, while maintaining his position, managed to give Emma a small nod and said quietly, "Thunder's got you, little one. You're safe with us." Detective Inspector Robert Chen had seen enough. Moving swiftly through the crowd of tourists, he approached the scene with his hand ready to reach for his radio. His trained eyes immediately took in the entire situation: the agitated horse, the small girl, the nervous man with something in his hand, and the increasing tension in the air. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step away from the child and show me your hands," Chen called out in a firm, authoritative voice that cut through the noise of the crowd. His years of experience had taught him to project calm authority even in potentially dangerous situations. Marcus spun around at the sound of the detective's voice, and in that moment of distraction, Thunder seized the opportunity. The intelligent horse stepped sideways, effectively pushing Emma further away from Marcus while simultaneously blocking any escape route the criminal might have been planning. "I wasn't doing anything wrong," Marcus protested, but his voice was shaky and unconvincing. He tried to slip the knife back into his pocket without being noticed, but Chen's sharp eyes caught the movement immediately. "Keep your hands where I can see them," Chen commanded, speaking into his radio as he approached. "This is Detective Inspector Chen requesting immediate backup at the main tourist area near Buckingham Palace. Potential attempted abduction in progress." Sarah Thompson had finally managed to push through the crowd and reach the edge of the scene. When she saw her daughter standing so close to the massive horse with a strange man nearby, her maternal instincts went into overdrive. "Emma!" she called out, but Detective Chen quickly gestured for her to stay back while the situation was still unfolding. Thunder remained alert and protective, his massive body creating a living shield around Emma. The horse's intelligence was remarkable. He seemed to understand exactly what was happening and was determined to ensure the child's safety until proper authorities could take control of the situation. James Mitchell, still maintaining his ceremonial position but now fully engaged in the crisis, continued to guide Thunder with subtle leg pressures and weight shifts. The partnership between horse and rider had never been more important, and both were performing their protective duties with exceptional skill. "Look, there's been a misunderstanding," Marcus said, trying a different approach as he realized that his situation was rapidly deteriorating. "I was just trying to help the little girl find her parents." She looked lost. "Emma, do you know this man?" Detective Chen asked the little girl while keeping his eyes fixed on Marcus. Emma shook her head vigorously. "No, I don't know him. He told me my mummy sent him, but I know she didn't. Thunder protected me when he tried to grab me." Her voice was clear and confident, showing remarkable composure for such a young child. The crowd of tourists had grown larger, and many were now openly filming the dramatic scene with their phones. Word was spreading quickly through the area that something significant was happening, and people were gathering from all directions to witness the unfolding drama. "The horse actually protected her?" asked an elderly woman from Australia, speaking to the person next to her. "I've never seen anything like that in my life." "These horses are specially trained," replied a local London resident who had stopped to watch. "But I've been coming here for years and I've never seen one of them react like this." That horse knew exactly what was happening. Marcus was becoming increasingly agitated as he realized that his escape options were rapidly disappearing. The taxi that had been waiting for him was still parked around the corner, but with Detective Chen blocking one path and Thunder blocking the other, he was effectively trapped in a circle of observers. "I need everyone to step back and give us some space," Chen announced to the crowd, while additional security personnel began arriving on the scene. The detective had called for backup, and within minutes, uniformed officers were making their way through the crowd. Thunder sensed the arrival of additional authority figures and seemed to relax slightly, but he remained positioned protectively near Emma. The horse's ears were still alert, and his eyes continued to track Marcus's every movement. Emma reached up and gently patted Thunder's neck. "Thank you for protecting me," she whispered. The horse lowered his great head slightly, as if acknowledging her gratitude, and the crowd murmured in amazement at the obvious bond that had formed between the child and the animal. "This is incredible," said a tourist from Japan, speaking to his wife in English. The horse actually understood that the child was in danger. "These animals are much more intelligent than I ever realized." Sarah Thompson was growing increasingly anxious to reach her daughter, but she understood that the police needed to secure the situation first. "Is my daughter safe?" she called out to Detective Chen. "Your daughter is perfectly safe, ma'am," Chen replied without taking his eyes off Marcus. "She's shown remarkable wisdom throughout this situation, and she's had the best possible protection." He gestured toward Thunder with obvious respect and admiration. By now, several uniformed police officers had arrived and were positioning themselves around the scene. Marcus looked around desperately, but it was clear that any hope of escape had vanished. The elaborate plan that had seemed so simple just minutes earlier had been completely thwarted by a horse's protective instincts and a little girl's smart thinking. "Sir, I'm going to need you to slowly remove whatever you have in your pocket and place it on the ground," one of the newly arrived officers instructed Marcus. The criminal's shoulders sagged as he realized that his situation was hopeless. James Mitchell finally spoke directly to the crowd for the first time. "Ladies and gentlemen, please give the officers space to do their work. The situation is under control, and the child is safe." Thunder gave one final protective snort in Marcus's direction, as if to emphasize that his guardianship of Emma was not quite finished yet. The horse's behavior throughout the entire incident had been nothing short of extraordinary, demonstrating an intelligence and protective instinct that would be talked about for years to come. Marcus Webb slowly reached into his jacket pocket and withdrew the small knife, placing it carefully on the cobblestones as directed. The metallic clink as it hit the ground seemed to echo through the suddenly quiet crowd, and several tourists gasped as they realized how serious the situation had actually been. "Thank you for your cooperation, Detective Inspector," Chen said as he carefully picked up the weapon using a handkerchief, ensuring that fingerprints would be preserved for evidence. "You're under arrest on suspicion of attempted child abduction and possession of a weapon in a public place." As the handcuffs clicked around Marcus's wrists, the full weight of what had almost happened began to sink in for everyone present. The tourists who had come to London for a pleasant day of sightseeing had instead witnessed a potential crime being prevented by the quick thinking of a Royal Guards horse. Thunder seemed to understand that the immediate danger had passed, but he remained alert and protective. The magnificent horse had positioned himself so that Emma was completely shielded from Marcus, and he didn't relax his guard until the criminal was safely in police custody and being led away from the scene. "Can I go to my mummy now?" Emma asked Detective Chen politely, looking up at him with her bright blue eyes. Throughout the entire ordeal, she had maintained remarkable composure, showing wisdom far beyond her 8 years. "Of course, sweetheart," Chen replied with a warm smile. "But first I think Thunder deserves a proper thank you for taking such good care of you." Emma turned to face the great black horse and reached up to gently stroke his neck. "Thank you, Thunder," she said softly. "You're the bravest horse in the whole world." The horse lowered his head toward her, and for a moment it seemed as though he was acknowledging her words. The crowd burst into spontaneous applause as Sarah Thompson was finally able to rush forward and embrace her daughter. Tears of relief streamed down the mother's face as she held Emma tightly, realizing how close she had come to losing her child. "I'm so sorry, Emma," Sarah whispered. "I should have been watching you more carefully. I was so distracted by all the sights and sounds." "It's okay, Mummy," Emma replied, hugging her mother back. "Thunder protected me. He knew that Bad Man was trying to hurt me, and he wouldn't let him." James Mitchell, still mounted on Thunder, finally allowed himself to show some emotion. The stoic expression that was required for his ceremonial duties softened as he looked down at the little girl who had just experienced such a frightening ordeal. "Thunder is indeed a very special horse," James said, speaking directly to Emma and her mother. "He's been my partner for 3 years, and I've never seen him react so protectively. He must have sensed that you were in danger." Detective Chen approached the horse and rider with obvious respect. "Guard Mitchell, I want to thank you and Thunder for your exceptional service today. Your quick thinking and Thunder's protective instincts potentially saved this little girl from a very dangerous situation." The detective then turned to address the crowd of tourists, who were still gathered around the scene. "Ladies and gentlemen, what you've witnessed today is truly extraordinary. The bond between the royal guards and their horses is legendary. But today you've seen that bond in action, protecting one of our youngest visitors." Several tourists began asking if they could take photos with Thunder and Emma, wanting to capture this remarkable moment. James Mitchell looked to Detective Chen for guidance, and after confirming that the immediate security situation was resolved, the detective nodded his approval. "I think Thunder has earned the right to receive some appreciation from our visitors," Chen said with a smile. "Just please be respectful and follow Guard Mitchell's instructions." Emma was the first to pose for a photo, standing proudly beside Thunder while her mother took picture after picture. The little girl's face was beaming with joy and gratitude, and Thunder seemed to enjoy the positive attention after the stress of the confrontation. "This is the best day of my whole life," Emma announced to everyone within hearing distance. "I got to meet a real hero horse." A reporter from a local London newspaper who had heard about the incident on the police scanner arrived on the scene and began interviewing witnesses. The story of Thunder's protective intervention was already beginning to spread beyond the immediate crowd of tourists. "In my 20 years of covering news in this city, I've never heard of anything quite like this," the reporter said to Detective Chen. "A ceremonial horse, actually, preventing a crime in progress. It's remarkable." Thunder's actions had created a buzz of excitement among the other royal guards stationed nearby. While they maintained their ceremonial positions, it was clear that they were proud of their colleague's performance under pressure. Guard William Hayes, who had been one of the first to notice that something was wrong, approached James Mitchell during a brief break in the ceremonial schedule. "That was incredible work, James. Thunder's training really showed today, but more than that, his natural instincts were outstanding." "I've always known Thunder was special," James replied, patting his horse's neck affectionately. "But today he proved that he's not just a ceremonial horse. He's a true guardian." As the immediate excitement began to settle down, Detective Chen started gathering statements from witnesses. The story that emerged was consistent from every person who had observed the incident. Thunder had recognized the threat to Emma before most of the humans present had even realized what was happening. "The horse just seemed to know," said Margaret Foster, a tourist from Scotland. "One moment everything was normal, and the next moment that beautiful horse was protecting that little girl like his life depended on it." Emma's father, David Thompson, who had been exploring a different area of the palace grounds, arrived on the scene just as the police were finishing their initial investigation. When Sarah explained what had happened, David's face went pale as he realized how close they had come to losing their daughter. "We can never thank you enough," David said to James Mitchell, reaching up to shake the guard's hand. "Thunder didn't just protect our daughter. He protected our entire family from unimaginable heartbreak." As news of Thunder's heroic intervention began to spread through London, the story took on a life of its own. Within hours, social media was buzzing with videos and photos taken by tourists who had witnessed the dramatic scene. The hashtag #OurThunderTheHero began trending across multiple platforms as people shared their amazement at the horse's protective instincts. Detective Inspector Chen had completed his preliminary investigation and discovered some disturbing information about Marcus Webb, A quick background check revealed that Marcus had been under surveillance as part of a larger investigation into a human trafficking ring that had been operating in London for several months. This wasn't a random attempted abduction, Chen explained to Detective Superintendent Patricia Williams, who had arrived to oversee the case. Webb was part of an organized group that specifically targets tourists and their children. Thunder's intervention may have prevented something much worse than we initially realized. The black taxi that had been waiting for Marcus was quickly located and searched by police. Inside, they found materials that confirmed their suspicions about the organized nature of the crime. Fake identification documents, restraints, and communication devices that linked the operation to other similar incidents across the city. Meanwhile, Emma Thompson had become something of a celebrity among the remaining tourists at Buckingham Palace. Children and adults alike were approaching her to hear the story firsthand, and Emma was more than happy to tell everyone about her brave horse protector. Thunder is the smartest horse in the whole world, Emma told a group of fascinated tourists. He knew that man was bad before anyone else did. He saved me, and now I want to be a horse rider when I grow up so I can help protect people too. James Mitchell was deeply moved by Emma's words and the impact the incident had clearly had on her young life. During his break, he dismounted Thunder and spent time talking with Emma and her family about horses, the Royal Guard, and the special bond between riders and their mounts. "Would you like to learn more about horses, Emma?" James asked. "There are some wonderful riding schools near where you live in Yorkshire. Thunder and I would be honored if our adventure today inspired you to pursue your dreams." Sarah Thompson pulled James aside privately to express her gratitude more fully. "I keep thinking about what could have happened if Thunder hadn't been there," she said, her voice still shaky with emotion. "That man had a knife and he was so focused on taking Emma. We could have lost her forever." The story was attracting attention from much higher levels of government as well. Word had reached the palace administration, and there was already discussion about formally recognizing Thunder's service. It wasn't every day that a ceremonial horse prevented a serious crime in such a public and dramatic fashion. Colonel Robert Ashworth, commanding officer of the Household Cavalry, arrived to speak with James Mitchell personally. "Guard Mitchell, what happened here today reflects the very best of our traditions and training. Thunder's actions demonstrate why we maintain such high standards for both our personnel and our horses." Thunder himself seemed to understand that he was receiving special attention. The intelligent horse appeared more alert and proud than usual, as if he knew that his actions had been significant. Several veterinarians who specialized in equine behavior had already requested permission to study the incident to better understand how horses can recognize and respond to human threats. Dr. Elizabeth Harper, an equine behavioral specialist from the Royal Veterinary College, was particularly interested in Thunder's response. "What we witnessed today challenges some of our understanding about how horses process complex social situations," she explained to Colonel Ashworth. "Thunder didn't just react to a physical threat, he recognized malicious intent and responded protectively. That level of social intelligence is remarkable." The media attention was growing by the hour. News outlets from around the world were picking up the story, and interview requests were pouring in from television stations, newspapers, and online publications. The palace press office was working to manage the attention, while ensuring that the focus remained on the positive aspects of the story. Emma's family had received dozens of interview requests, but they were being selective about which opportunities to accept. They wanted to honor Thunder's heroism, while also protecting Emma's privacy and ensuring that she wasn't overwhelmed by too much attention. "We want people to know how amazing Thunder was," David Thompson explained to a BBC reporter. "But Emma is just 8 years old, and we need to make sure this remains a positive experience for her." The criminal investigation was progressing rapidly. Marcus Webb had been charged with multiple serious offenses, and police were using information gathered from his arrest to build cases against other members of the trafficking ring. Detective Chen was optimistic that Thunder's intervention had helped expose a much larger criminal operation. Sometimes one moment of bravery can have consequences far beyond what anyone could have predicted, Chen told his colleagues. Thunder's actions may have saved not just Emma, but potentially many other children who were targets of this organization. Back at Buckingham Palace, Thunder was receiving visitors throughout the day. Other members of the Royal Guard were bringing their horses to meet the hero, and there was a sense of pride throughout the entire unit. The incident had reminded everyone of the deeper purpose behind their ceremonial duties. They were guardians and protectors, not just participants in tradition. Emma and her family had decided to extend their stay in London by 1 day so they could return to visit Thunder again. The little girl had asked her parents if they could bring Thunder some special treats as a way of saying, "Thank you for protecting her." "I want to bring him the biggest, juiciest apples we can find," Emma announced, "and maybe some carrots too. Heroes should get the best food." The bond that had formed between Emma and Thunder during those critical moments was clearly lasting. Even hours after the incident, when Emma approached Thunder, the horse immediately focused his attention on her, lowering his head and allowing her to pet him gently. "It's like they're old friends," Sarah observed, watching her daughter interact with the massive horse. Thunder recognizes her, and she feels completely safe with him. The story was inspiring discussions about animal intelligence and the relationships between humans and horses in police and military work around the world. Training facilities were already analyzing the incident to see what lessons could be learned and applied to their own programs. 3 weeks after the incident, Thunder's story had reached international audiences and sparked conversations about animal intelligence across the globe. The palace had received letters and emails from children around the world, many containing drawings and stories about brave horses. Emma's family had been invited to return to London for a special ceremony honoring Thunder's service. The ceremony was being held in the courtyard of Buckingham Palace, with representatives from various animal welfare organizations, equine experts, and members of the royal family in attendance. Emma wore a new blue dress for the occasion and carried a bouquet of carrots and apples that she had personally selected for Thunder. "I'm so excited to see Thunder again," Emma told the gathered crowd of reporters as her family arrived at the palace. "I've been practicing riding lessons at home, and I want to tell him all about it." Detective Inspector Chen had prepared a detailed report on how Thunder's intervention had led to the arrest of 12 members of the human trafficking ring. The investigation had uncovered evidence of crimes spanning several years, and police estimated that Thunder's actions had potentially prevented dozens of future abductions. "This case has shown us the incredible value of animal partners in law enforcement," Chen explained to the assembled dignitaries. Thunder wasn't trained for police work, but his natural protective instincts and intelligence proved more effective than many sophisticated security systems. Dr. Elizabeth Harper had completed her behavioral analysis of Thunder's actions and was presenting her findings at the ceremony. Her research had attracted attention from animal behaviorists worldwide and was already being cited in academic papers about equine cognition. Thunder demonstrated what we call situational awareness at a level rarely seen in domestic animals, Dr. Harper explained. He recognized a threat pattern, assessed the danger to a vulnerable individual, and took decisive protective action. This behavior suggests cognitive abilities that we're only beginning to understand. James Mitchell had been promoted to senior guard as a result of his exemplary performance during the crisis. His partnership with Thunder was being held up as a model for the training of future royal guards and their horses. "The bond between a guard and his horse is sacred," James told the audience. "Thunder and I have trained together for years, but that day he showed me that our partnership goes deeper than anything that can be taught in a training manual." Thunder himself seemed to enjoy the ceremony, standing proudly as various officials spoke about his heroism. When Emma approached with her gifts of apples and carrots, the horse immediately focused his attention on her, just as he had weeks earlier. "Hello, Thunder," Emma said softly, offering him an apple. "I've been learning to ride horses because of you. Maybe someday I can be as brave as you are." The crowd watched in amazement as Thunder gently took the apple from Emma's small hand and then lowered his head so she could pet his neck. The connection between the child and the horse was obvious to everyone present. Colonel Ashworth announced that Thunder would be receiving a special commendation for his service, making him the first ceremonial horse in the history of the Royal Guard to receive such an honor for protecting a civilian. Thunder's actions represent the finest traditions of service and protection, the colonel declared. He has shown that courage and intelligence are not limited to human guardians. The ceremony included the presentation of a special bridle for Thunder, designed with commemorative details that would mark his heroic service. Emma was given the honor of helping to present the award, a moment that brought tears to many eyes in the audience. Media outlets from around the world were covering the ceremony, and the story had inspired similar recognition programs for service animals in other countries. Several police departments had contacted the palace to learn more about Thunder's training and background. The Thompson family had used their experience to become advocates for child safety education. They were working with schools in Yorkshire to teach children about stranger danger and the importance of trusting their instincts when they feel unsafe. Emma's experience taught us that children are often smarter and more perceptive than adults give them credit for. Sarah Thompson explained to a group of parents and teachers. She knew that man was dangerous, and she made the right choice to stay close to Thunder. The criminal case against Marcus Webb and his associates was proceeding through the courts, with Thunder's intervention being cited as crucial evidence in establishing the organized nature of the crimes. Prosecutors were using video footage of the incident to demonstrate how the trafficking ring operated and how Thunder's actions had exposed their methods. Emma had written a letter to Thunder that was read aloud during the ceremony, bringing smiles and tears to the assembled crowd. "Dear Thunder," the letter began, "thank you for being my hero. You saved me from a very bad man, and now I know that horses are the most wonderful animals in the world. I hope we can be friends forever." The ceremony concluded with a special parade featuring Thunder and the other Royal Guard horses. As they processed through the courtyard, thousands of spectators cheered and applauded, with many calling out Thunder's name specifically. Dr. Harper announced that she would be establishing a research fund in Thunder's name to study animal cognition and protective behaviors. Universities around the world had expressed interest in contributing to the research, which could lead to better training methods for service animals. The incident had also inspired changes in security protocols around tourist areas. While maintaining the traditional and ceremonial aspects of the Royal Guard, additional plainclothes security personnel were now stationed in the crowds to watch for suspicious behavior. Emma's riding lessons back home in Yorkshire had progressed remarkably well, with her instructor noting that she showed exceptional natural ability and fearlessness around horses. The little girl often told her riding classmates about Thunder and how he had protected her. As the ceremony ended and the crowds began to disperse, Emma spent a few final moments alone with Thunder, whispering secrets that only she and the horse would ever know. The bond that had been forged in a moment of danger had grown into a friendship that would last a lifetime. "I'll come back to visit you again," Emma promised Thunder, giving him one last carrot. "And maybe when I'm older I can become a Royal Guard too and we can protect other children together." Thunder nickered softly in response, as if understanding every word the little girl had spoken. The ceremony had officially ended, but the story of their friendship was just beginning. 1 year later, Emma Thompson returned to London as a completely different person than the frightened little girl who had almost been abducted. Now 9 years old and an accomplished young rider, she had been invited back to participate in a special anniversary commemoration of Thunder's heroic actions. The past year had transformed Emma's life in ways no one could have predicted. Her experience with Thunder had ignited a passion for horses and riding that had become the center of her world. She now competed in local riding competitions and had even won several ribbons for her skill and bravery in the saddle. "Emma has shown remarkable progress," explained her riding instructor, Mrs. Margaret Davies, who had accompanied the family to London. "She has a natural connection with horses that I've rarely seen in someone so young. Her experience with Thunder seems to have given her an almost intuitive understanding of how horses think and feel." Thunder, meanwhile, had become something of a celebrity in his own right. The palace had received thousands of visitors specifically asking to see the famous horse, and his story had been featured in children's books, documentaries, and educational programs around the world. Detective Inspector Chen had become a regular visitor to the palace, often bringing his own children to see Thunder. The detective's investigation into the trafficking ring had led to convictions that resulted in prison sentences, totaling over 100 years, for the criminal organization. Thunder's actions that day saved not just Emma, but potentially dozens of other children. Chen reflected as he watched Emma approach Thunder with obvious joy. "The evidence we gathered from that arrest led us to victims we never would have found otherwise. Some of those children are back with their families today because of what Thunder did." James Mitchell had been selected for an elite assignment with the Queen's Guard, a promotion that recognized both his exceptional service and his partnership with Thunder. The bond between horse and rider had become legendary within the royal guards, inspiring a new generation of guardsmen to develop deeper relationships with their mounts. Thunder taught me that our horses are not just transportation or ceremony, James explained to a group of new recruits. They are partners, protectors, and sometimes heroes. The relationship we build with them can make the difference between life and death. Emma's return visit included a private meeting with several members of the royal family, who wanted to personally thank her for her bravery and to hear about her riding progress. The little girl, no longer quite so little, spoke confidently about her dreams of someday working with horses professionally. "I want to train horses to help protect people," Emma told her royal hosts. "Thunder showed me that horses can be heroes, and I want to help make more heroes like him." The anniversary commemoration featured the unveiling of a bronze plaque near the spot where Thunder had protected Emma. The plaque bore an inscription that read, "In recognition of Thunder, whose courage and intelligence protected the innocent, and in celebration of the bond between humans and horses that makes such heroism possible." Dr. Elizabeth Harper's research into animal cognition, funded by donations made in Thunder's name, had yielded remarkable results. Her work was contributing to improved training methods for police horses, therapy animals, and service dogs around the world. Thunder's actions opened our eyes to capabilities we never fully appreciated, Dr. Harper explained to the gathered crowd. "We're now training animals to recognize and respond to human distress in ways we never thought possible." Emma's family had established a scholarship fund for children who wanted to learn to ride but couldn't afford lessons. The Thunder Hero Fund had already helped over 50 children begin their equestrian education, spreading the horse's legacy of protection and inspiration to a new generation. As the anniversary ceremony concluded, Emma was given the opportunity to ride with Thunder in a special ceremonial parade. Sitting proudly on a smaller horse beside James Mitchell and Thunder, she waved to the crowds who had gathered to celebrate the anniversary of her rescue. "This is the best day ever," Emma called out to her parents as she rode past. "Thunder and I are a team now." The transformation in both Emma and Thunder over the past year had been remarkable to witness. Emma had grown from a potential victim into a confident young advocate for animal welfare and child safety. Thunder had evolved from a ceremonial horse into a symbol of protection and intelligence that inspired people around the world. As the parade ended and Emma prepared to return home to Yorkshire, she spent one final moment alone with Thunder. The horse lowered his great head to her level, just as he had done that frightening day a year earlier, but now the gesture was one of friendship rather than protection. "Thank you for changing my life, Thunder," Emma whispered, stroking his neck. "You didn't just save me that day, you showed me who I want to become." Thunder nickered softly in response, and for a moment it seemed as though the horse understood exactly what Emma meant. Their story had begun with danger and fear, but it had grown into something beautiful, a testament to courage, intelligence, and the extraordinary bonds that can form between humans and animals. As Emma's family departed London that evening, they carried with them not just memories of a heroic horse, but the knowledge that sometimes the most unexpected heroes emerge in our darkest moments. Thunder's legacy would continue to inspire children and adults alike, proving that bravery, intelligence, and protection can come in many forms. The story of Thunder and Emma had become more than just a tale of rescue. It had become a symbol of hope, showing that even in a world that can sometimes seem dangerous and uncertain, there are still heroes watching over the innocent, ready to act when courage is needed most.